Call of Duty is not a political game, according to Infinity Ward. This is a bit of a long read, but I think it's an important read. This is from Natalie Clayton over at VG247. Let's talk about imperial superpowers and power relationships all you like. It's not politics if you don't name real people. Infinity Ward wants you to know that Call of Duty Modern Warfare, a game about proxy wars between superpowers and the colonial domains that do their dirty work, is apolitical. Phew! Dodged the bullet there. Job well done. This is editorialized if you can't tell. The article continues. Modern Warfare wants to be realistic. It wants to make you feel uncomfortable with the horrors of war, but it wants to do all of that without any allegory to the politics of real life. That's the sentiment shared by gameplay director Jacob Minkoff. Speaking to Game Informer, Minkoff claimed that the Modern Warfare isn't one of those naughty political games. The reasoning, it doesn't mention Trump by name. Quote, do we touch topics that bear resemblance to the geopolitics of the world we live in today? Hell yeah, because that is the subject matter of Modern Warfare, end quote, said Minkoff. Quote, are we telling a story that has anything to do with specific governments or any countries that we are portraying? No. So if you're asking, like, is Trump in the video game? No, he isn't, end quote. Narrative director Taylor Kurosaki chimed in, adding more confusion to the claim. Quote, we do talk about concepts like colonialism and occupation and independence and freedom. We don't maybe say those words specifically, but that's the realm that we are in. Quote, but you could have a game that takes place in revolutionary America talk about those exact same concepts. It could be set in Afghanistan in the 80s instead, end quote. Yeah. Oh my gosh, guys. This is not the first time we have seen stories like this coming out of massive AAA studios. We saw the same thing happen with the Division 2, where developers are so scared of the word politics that they don't know the definition of it when they're talking about it. I am so befuddled by what we're supposed to think about Call of Duty Modern Warfare because of the just complete lack of focus in the messaging for the game. And we've talked about this at length on PvA Radio, so I'm not going to rehash necessarily everything that we think about this. But we've seen where Modern Warfare, where Infinity Ward has talked about Call of Duty Modern Warfare and said, we want to say something about war. We want to display the horrors of war. We're going to make you make tough decisions. We're going to put you in realistic situations that are just shitty. Like, but look how powerful you feel when you're shooting this gun. And, big applause. We're bringing back kill streak rewards and look at what they are. Like, it's a we want to have our cake and eat it too kind of thing, and we've talked at length about how I don't think Call of Duty is the right franchise to say something about war. It's just not. Like, we've had games in the past from Call of Duty where they've tried to take on like the industrialization of war and the privatization of war and all that kind of stuff. And then you put on your like bright orange camo and you dab on the people that you kill in multiplayer. Like, I just don't think it's the franchise for it. But this idea that we're going to say something about war, I can't even get through the statement that we're going to say something. We're going to display war in all of its gory detail, all of its pain, all of its suffering, all of its loss. We're going to try to help you to understand the context of war. We want to display the horrors of war in a way that our fan base can connect to it, while completely ignoring the fact that a war is fought between two opposing governments with their own sets of politics, with their own sets of ideologies, and that war is the conflict between those for control. You cannot have an apolitical game that attempts to say something about war. The two ideas are diametrically opposed to one another. They are mutually exclusive. Apolitical games, games that say something about war, the Venn diagram doesn't overlap, guys. And just because you don't have some like avatar for Donald Trump in the game, and you don't talk about Brexit, and you don't talk about Russia trying to expand their territory, just because you don't talk about it doesn't mean there's not politics in your game. You cannot say something about colonialism, occupation, independence, and freedom without some sort of subtext to it. And if there's no subtext to it, you're not making a hard-hitting game. And that's fine. It is totally fine if Call of Duty just wants to say, hey, we're making a game, you know, we're going to make sure the shooting is fun. We are going to make sure that the action is packed, and we are going to make sure the explosions feel powerful, and we are going to make sure that you experience what it is like to shoot a gun in war and all these things. Like, if they want to do that and avoid the politics thing, totally fine. There are plenty of shooters out there that don't have anything to say about politics. But you know what they don't do? Claim to have something to say. The story just blows my mind, man. Like, we're so scared of being on the wrong side of the political conversation that these developers can't even recognize that what they are saying is that they are talking about political things at the same time as saying our game has nothing to do with politics. It's apolitical. Get out of here with that. I'm really worried about Modern Warfare from an identity standpoint. I think the game's going to be fun. I've talked at length about how I think Gunfight is going to be awesome. I'm excited about the multiplayer, but from an identity perspective, I feel like I'm going to feel weird playing this game because it's going to be bifurcated. It's going to be clear not the struggles of war as I'm playing the game, but the struggles of these developers trying to toe a line that just does not exist. Still going to play it. Still going to play it, but I'm just sick of these stories. Sick of them. They're just weird. Like, what storyteller? Talk to anybody who writes, and I don't care if it's somebody like award-winning bestseller or somebody who just like has a manuscript on their computer at home that only they've laid eyes on. Like, talk to any of them and be like, do you not want to say anything in this? Like, are you writing something that doesn't say something? Like, is there no lesson to be learned here? Every single one of them is going to be like, oh yeah, no, we want our art to say something. But these developers and the writers of these games constantly step out and they're like, oh, we're not trying to say anything. We're not trying to take a stance. We're not trying to leverage the art of storytelling for the exact purpose that it exists for. Like, miss me with this shit, guys. It's completely and totally asinine to suggest that you're saying something about colonialism, occupation, independence, and freedom, but you're being apolitical. Stupid. You don't understand the definition of apolitical.